Hello everyone, my name is Yuberz, and today I'll be going over how to play Ranger in PSO2 New Genesis. Ranger is a mid-range class that utilizes the assault rifle and launcher to dish out incredible damage, support teammates, and with amazing mobility to boot. A disclaimer before we begin. This video was made about 2 days after launch, so everything I say may become outdated over time. There will also be chapters in case you want to skip to a specific section. Finally, in the link in the description, there's a written version of this guide. Without further ado, let's discuss what skills you have at your disposal. Starting with our skill tree, it's relatively small, so you should be able to unlock almost all of the skills after you do all the cocoons and towers available. At the end of this section, I will be explaining what I believe is the best order to unlock all of these skills. Starting from the top and moving down, we have Blight Rounds. This is the essential ranger skill, and I highly recommend putting your first skill point into this. What it does is it marks an enemy, creating a weak point on that specific body part, which makes every body deal more damage to that area. It's an incredibly effective supporting tool that also lets you dish out tons of damage. It stores up to 3 of these bullets. Whenever you increase the level of this skill, it also reduces the cooldown of it. But don't put more skill points into it until later. The skill coming off of it is Blight Rounds Reinforced. This makes it so your Blight Rounds increase damage even further after a part is hit 100 times. It will turn purple to indicate that it's active. This is also a really great skill, and I also toss a point into it early on. Bad Condition Ward and Bad Condition Reduction do exactly what they sound like. They reduce the chances of you getting a status ailment and the duration of negative status ailments. They're both relatively useless skills in most scenarios since there aren't any status ailments that are completely debilitating yet. Even if there are in the future, the other skills are much better and are still more valuable than these. I wouldn't recommend putting any points into them unless you have extra points left over. Slow Landing Attack Ranger and Slow Landing Charge Ranger let you fall slower when attacking and while doing PAs respectively. They're a really nice quality of life skill, especially if you use to base PSO2 Ranger. I wouldn't prioritize them though since they're not necessarily the most important. Spread Shot is an activatable skill that acts as a shotgun blast. It has to be charged up, but when pressed fires 2 shotgun blasts, effective at close range. It's really fun to play with, but can be dangerous due to it locking you in the animation during it. To compensate for that, Spread Shot Quick Getaway adds some invincibility to Spread Shot, making it a bit safer to use. Overall, really fun and also one of your high priorities. Rifle Grenadier upgrades your weapon action. When you hold and press weapon action, it will launch a missile at the enemy if you're pressing a direction, and lay a trap if you don't press any direction. It can deal a considerable amount of damage, but it has a 30-second cooldown. You can see how much longer it has left by the cooldown of the rifle weapon action when you attempt to use it. Overall, a great tool to tack on some more damage. I consider getting it after Blight Rounds or after Spread Shot. Sticky Bomb Quick Reload simply reduces the cooldown on launcher's weapon action. It's not a very good skill. I would put it almost last in priority, more on launcher's weapon action later. Slide Shot Advance gives rifle's weapon action a little bit of invincibility when used. It's a very slight increase and honestly won't help against huge lasers, but it has its uses sometimes. It's pretty low priority. Finally, Launcher Charge Grouping. If you charge your launcher's normal attack and press forward while firing, it will increase its accuracy. This means that instead of hitting a larger area, it focuses it in one spot, dealing more damage. It's an alright skill, but I wouldn't say it's a high priority either. Here's the order I'd recommend you get these skills in. Put your first skill point into Blight Rounds, then the next 2 into Spread Shot and Rifle Grenadier. Next, get Blight Rounds Reinforce, Spread Shot Quick Getaway, Slide Shot Advance, Slow Landing Charge Ranger, Slow Landing Attack Ranger, Sticky Bomb Quick Reload, Launcher Charge Grouping, and finally distribute the rest of your points into the bad condition skills however you want. Now let's discuss Subclass. I think that the best subclass you can go for is Force. But Yuberz, that's a magic class, wouldn't Gunner be way better? Yeah, intuitively, people would pick Gunner. The thing is that Gunner's skill tree doesn't offer any benefits to Ranger, since it also shares Spread Shot, which you already have. And if you're thinking about using twin machine guns with Ranger, I'd suggest just playing Gunner instead. Here's why Force is so good. These 2 skills, PP Conversion and PP Recovery Boost. PP Conversion is an activatable skill that reduces your health slightly, but grants huge PP regeneration during its duration. Here's a comparison of normal attacking to refill PP versus normal attacking with PP Conversion on. It lasts 30 seconds, so you can actually refill your PP entirely multiple times. It also upgrades into PP conversion increase, nice typo Sega, which lets you store up to 2 charges of it. It's relatively useful. PP recovery boost just boosts natural PP regeneration, so it's like a mini PP conversion, but at all times. These 2 skills act kind of like a battery so you can keep spamming PAs for huge burst damage. Also an incredibly good skill. Eradication PP gain is a passive skill that gives you PP when you kill an enemy near you. I'd max this one last. It sounds good on paper, and it's great for mobbing, but in boss fights it's not nearly as useful as the other 2. Basically, max PP conversion, then max PP recovery boost, get PP conversion increase, then dump the rest of the skill points into eradication PP gain. If you still want to play Force in the future and don't have a skill reset pass, I would put the points from eradication PP gain into other skills for Force. Before I can start talking about attacking, I have to explain critical distance. Depending on your distance from the target that's being hit, there will be a sweet spot where you can deal more damage. You can tell if you're in the right spot by these really large hit sparks, and your crosshair will turn orange. If they aren't there, you need to move closer or farther back to deal more damage. With a little bit of practice, you'll be able to figure out the optimal place to stand. Ranger's main weapon is the assault rifle, so we'll start there. The rifle's normal attack is a constant stream of bullets. You can also slowly walk around while continuously firing. It's a relatively standard move, not much to say about it. Rifle's weapon action is a dash in any direction that also fires bullets while doing so. It's the Ranger mobility option and lets you quickly get into the right position to dodge attacks and fire off PAs safely. It also refills PP to boot. With Slide Shot Advance, it gets even a little invincibility, which can come in handy at times. I definitely recommend setting it to a button that's easy to reach since you'll be using this very often. Blaze Shot is a PA that acts similarly to Slide Burst from base PSO2. It constantly drains PP in exchange for a higher fire rate and greater mobility compared to the normal attack. The damage is serviceable, and also the maneuverability helps you hit weak spots easier. The fast fire rate also helps you trigger Blight rounds reinforced faster. Overall, it's a pretty solid PA that I would keep on your weapon palette. When you press it, your character will also slightly move in the direction being pressed, so it can also be used to maneuver slightly. Homing darts is one of Ranger's best mobbing tools. You have to press and hold, which enters you into a target painting mode. Anything in range will be marked when looked at. Releasing the button fires a bullet at as many of the marked targets as possible, making this incredibly effective at dealing with tons of small mobs. The best way of using it is to use over-the-shoulder view and quickly glance over the general area to mark all the enemies as quickly as possible, then releasing and repeating. Raising Shot is the highest DPS assault rifle PA. It acts similarly to Piercing Round or Photon Blasts from base PSO2. You charge up a piercing bullet that deals damage to enemies multiple times. It can be tapped, which fires 2 strong bullets. In general, the tapped version is better than the charged version. Basically, you trade the mobility of Blaze Shot for more damage. This PA drains a lot of PP though, so PP conversion is highly recommended when using this photon art. That does it for Rifle. Let's talk about Launcher. Launcher is the opposite of Rifle since it's much slower but offers much greater damage. It also doesn't require critical distance, so you can stand wherever you want. Launcher's normal attack has the user turn a little before firing, and has a long amount of startup before coming out. However, this normal attack is unique in that it can be charged. If charged, it deals damage in a line, resulting in a larger AoE. If you have Launcher charge grouping, pressing forward will have all the rockets hit in a much smaller area. In general, it's best to do the charge version if you can, but the single attack works in a pinch for repositioning since you can slide while doing it. Launcher's weapon action is a sticky bomb. When the weapon action is used, your character will throw a sticky bomb at the enemy that will explode over time. It doesn't deal much damage, but it will refill a good amount of PP, so it's worth throwing out whenever it's on cooldown. With Sticky Bomb Quick Reload, the cooldown is 30 seconds, just like Rifle Grenadier. Multi-Launch is a PA that fires 10 rockets, with the last one being a much larger explosion. It can't be held constantly to fire, despite how it looks. You're also able to move at Blaze Shot speeds while firing it, making it a very effective PA for hitting multiple enemies and is a great option for DPS as a launcher. Fallen Impact is a PA that marks an area, and after a delay of about 2 seconds, will start raining down rockets on that spot. It has by far the fastest startup of all the launcher PAs, but it's incredibly ineffective on mobile targets. I'd use this as a DPS option for stationary or down targets. Fear Eraser is a PA that transforms your launcher into a freaking laser cannon. It constantly fires while you hold down the PA until you decide to stop or run out of PP. When it's stopped, it fires a large blast that does damage. If you only tap the PA, it does not have the finishing blast. You can tell if you've held it long enough because your character will have a purple effect to show it. It has a long startup and roots you in place. In addition, turning with it is relatively slow. Its best use is to deal major DPS to downed enemies. In fact, this is the highest DPS PA that Ranger has. Here's all of Ranger's PAs sorted by DPS. At the top we have Fear Eraser, then the tapped version of Raising Shot, Multi-Launch, Blaze Shot, Fallen Impact, and then Homing Dart. The charged version of Raising Shot and Homing Dart are hard to rank because they have a lot of variables. Raising Shot depends on how large the enemy is, while Homing Dart depends on the number of body parts that an enemy has. Finally, we have the Photon Blast you can use with either weapon. You can use Force Photon Blast as well, like with Rod and Talus, but we'll focus on the ones that Ranger has. Assault Rifle Photon Blast is similar to Fallen Impact. It starts raining down bullets on the spot that's marked. Launch's Photon Blast, on the other hand, fires a shell that explodes, creating an AoE that expands on the ground. In general, I prefer to use Assault Rifle's Photon Blast because it's much easier overall to use than Launcher. Here's my weapon palette. On the first side, I have Rifle Normal Attack, Blaze Shot as my mouse 2, and Launcher Weapon Action as my middle mouse button. On the second side, I have Fear Eraser, then Homing Dart on my mouse 2, and Raising Shot on my middle mouse button. You can also switch out Raising Shot or Fear Eraser for multi-launch. I have my weapon action bound to a button on my mouse, but if you're playing on controller or can't do that, feel free to adjust as needed. If there's a group of small enemies, I first spam Homing Dart until I run out of PP. I then activate PP conversion to build my PP back up. If there's still more small enemies, I'll repeat the Homing Dart spam until there aren't anymore. Once I've isolated the bigger targets, I will mark their weak point with a Blight Shot, then use Blaze Shot, Raising Shot, or Multi-Launch until they die. If it's a boss, then I'll also use Fallen Impact, which is optional, then immediately Weapon Action to get the Launcher Weapon Action. This attaches the Sticky Bomb to the enemy for more PP. Fire Normal Attack with Rifle, then continue as normal. If the boss ever gets stunned or downed, then I'll get up close and use Fear Eraser. I also use Rifle Grenadier whenever it goes off cooldown. I have my weapon actions bound in my sub-palette so I can see the cooldowns of both of the weapon actions. Repeat this over ad nauseum. You don't really have to use the trap version of Rifle Grenadier, since it seemingly does similar damage. If your target is super mobile or small, like Bujin, then the trap may be preferable if you can bait the enemy into it. I would definitely recommend using a multi-weapon of Rifle and Launcher, because a Launcher's weapon action is very good for restoring PP and dishing out damage, while Rifle's skills support the team and offer great damage as well. If you don't have a multi-weapon, address your team comp. If there are no other Rangers, use Assault Rifle to support the team. If there are other Rangers, you're free to use Launcher to your heart's content. In the end, you should always play whichever you prefer. Currently, the upgrade path is rather linear. Use the highest rarity weapon you can get your hands on. The only decision you'll have to make is differentiating between the 4-star weapons. First, both Assault Rifle and Launcher have Resurge. Whenever you sidestep or step dodge an enemy attack, you gain 15% crit rate for 30 seconds. This is the best offensive pick, and overall, I would recommend this weapon if I had to choose between the two. Assault Rifle has the Forces Assault Rifle. When you're at full health, you gain a barrier that gives you 40% damage reduction. The problem with this is that Ranger usually doesn't get hit, or you can dodge, so the defense is not very necessary. Launcher has the Vialto Launcher, which increases natural PP recovery and attack PP recovery by 10%. The problem is that it's completely pointless with Force subclass, so it's kind of redundant. The Research Launcher is much better. Alright, with all of this information, you should be well equipped to play Ranger. Like I said at the start of the video, the information in this video may be outdated as new findings come out. It's a new game after all. Check the pinned comment and the written guide for the most up-to-date information. If you have any feedback or if I missed anything, feel free to message me on Discord, which is in the description. I'm also on Ship 3, so if you see me, say hi.